All right, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone again here this Sunday. So we're not starting a series because next week is going to be, pre-Lent Sunday, so we're going to have another special talk about how to prepare for Lent, and then, God willing, during Lent, we are going to go into a series. What I want to talk about today is a big issue that a lot of people throughout life, and especially these days, we feel spiritual apathy. What is apathy? Is when you don't feel like doing anything. You don't feel encouraged. You don't feel like serving. You don't feel like praying. You don't feel like doing anything that you feel like you should be doing. And so you get this feeling of spiritual apathy. I'm going to start out with a story. So when I got married about 13 years ago, we were told when we were putting our registry, they said, look, when you make your registry, go get China. China is the most important thing to put on your registry. It's expensive. It's not something you're going to use your own money to buy. It's not one of those things that you just go to the store and pick up and buy. So go and get lots and lots and lots of China. It's expensive. It's a good gift, whatever. So we went zapping away at the China thing, and this is the best gift. So lo and behold, weeks before the wedding is coming, the online gifts start coming, and it's all China. I'm like, yes, everybody bought the China. We got married. First year, we had both sets of families and in-laws over, had dinner, didn't use the China. Then we had bishops come over. We had 2 bishops come over for dinner at the same time. We didn't use the China. And I looked at Sherry, I'm like, who are we waiting for to come over that we're going to use this China? This was the most useless gift, and now half of our registry is China. It was the dumbest thing we ever did. So the lesson is, don't ever put China on your wedding registry. But I have good news for you. 13 years later, about a month ago, Sherry said, let me try. The stuff is still in boxes. She went back to Macy's and got us all of our money back. So it was, not our money, got us your money back. So very good. Go, Sherry. Very good. Anytime a gift is given, the person receiving the gift must choose to respond in one of 2 ways. The first way, I'll get to that. The first way is that the gift is so valuable, it can't be risked. Those who follow the first way realize that when the gift is brought out of the box and into the open, things may not always go so well. The gift might be used poorly, it might break, may not be admired by other people, and so we say, you know what? Just keep it the way it is, don't open it, in case. Just in case, leave it the way it is. Just in case we break it. We don't want to break it, so just leave it the way it is. The second way, this gift is so valuable that it must be risked. What does that mean? These people understand that the gift is not brought out of the box. It's never going to be used. It's useless. And to leave the gift in the box is to hinder the desire of the giver. So if you are given a gift, okay, somebody comes over and gives you a gift, and then they know that it is, let's say they gave you a brand new TV, and they come over and they visit your house, and they see that the big, expensive TV that they bought you isn't there. You have a dinky TV. What are you doing to the people that have given you this gift? You're hindering their desire to give you again. I gave you last time, you didn't use it. It was something so valuable, something so precious, and you figured, you know what? We don't want to put holes in the wall and hang up the TV, so we kind of have it in a box, and one day we're going to figure out whether we should use the TV or not. You see, along with every gift that we've been given, each and every one of us has been given a gift, okay? And you've been given a choice. And whether or not you're going to open it and use what God has given to you is what's important. Is your life following the first way or the second way? God has given every single one of us as His people in the church a gift. Every single one of you has a gift. Are you the type of person that keeps the gift in the package, unopened, unused, just because I don't know if I'm good at it? What if I break it? What if it's not really that special? And so I leave it in the box. And the other person says, you know what? I'm going to go out there, I'm going to use it. We only have one life to live. Let's enjoy. Which one are you? When Jesus was walking on the water, and the disciples were in a storm on a boat, the boat was rocky, it was scary, and they saw Jesus and they thought it was a ghost. Then when St. Peter saw Jesus, he says, Lord, if it is you, command me. If it is you, command me. Command me to come to you. You see, St. Peter, when he was talking to Jesus, he didn't ask Jesus for a promise. He said, Lord Jesus, promise me that I'm not going to sink. If I get in the water and I put my foot in the water, can you please promise me that I'm not going to sink? Did St. Peter say that? St. Peter said, I don't need a promise. I need a commandment. You see, he says, Lord, if it is you, command me. What we have to understand is that you cannot ask God for guarantees, but just opportunities. How many of you in your life, what is hindering you in your walk with God is that you're expecting God to guarantee that you're going to be okay? Lord, I want to use my gift, but what if it's not effective? What if I get embarrassed? What if people don't like me? What if I'm not effective? Whatever it is, each and every one of us has a gift. And one of us is choosing, and we're all choosing one of the two ways. Either leave the gift in the box because it's too risky to use it, or open it and saying we only have one life to live. You see, the followers of the first way don't want to risk brokenness or failure. How many of us are like that? How many of us in our walks with God, we're so limited, we're so hindered and held back because we feel, I'm afraid that I'm going to be broken. I'm afraid that I won't be accepted. I'm afraid that I'm going to fail. You know, so many people become so apathetic in their walk with God. They don't care. Why? Because who am I? And sometimes we as a church, we communicate the wrong things structurally. When you attend a liturgy, you have a Abuna, he stands up on the altar, he's the center of attention. And then you have a bunch of deacons smacking cymbals, and so they get a lot of attention. And then you have Abuna stands on the pulpit, and he gets attention. And the congregation is just what? Everybody else. And we think that the roles within the kingdom of God is there's people and then there's everybody else. And so we start to think, well, who am I? Who am I to have any special role within the kingdom of God? Who am I to be used and experience God in such a great and powerful way? You know, many of us, we get to this point because we don't really know God. We don't really know who God is. I learned a lesson this week during Jonahs' fast. How 3 categories of people, you have the people on the ship with Jonah, didn't know how far God's love could go. Jonah himself could not possibly imagine that God's love could go as far as it did. The Ninevites could not possibly have imagined. So the seamen, the people who were on the ship with Jonah, they're in a storm. They throw over all their cargo to save themselves. Didn't work. They pray to their gods. Didn't work. At this point, you think, what? That's it. We're dead. There's no other option. I'm in a storm in a very dinky little ship. And what happened? Nothing. And so, what are the chances that God is going to do something in my life at this time in a storm? Then you get Jonah. Jonah comes up and he says, you know what? I'm the reason why you're in a storm. Throw me over. So he gets thrown over. I want you to imagine you get thrown over in the middle of a storm in the middle of the ocean. What is the likelihood that you're going to survive this storm? Probably very slim, but there's still a chance that maybe somebody will throw you a raft, throw you something and say, come back, we're going to save you. If you thought that was bad luck, how about when a whale swallows you in the middle of the storm? Like, if you weren't going to survive the storm, there's no way Jonah thought, chances are I'm probably going to survive being swallowed by a whale and being in the belly of a whale. You see, these seamen, when they threw over Jonah, they discovered something new about God. They discovered that there is this undeserved deliverance, this unhoped for deliverance. For what? For me. I didn't know that God's love could go that far. That in the middle of a storm, when I've lost all hope, God could still calm the storm. Jonah. When Jonah gets thrown over, storm, he could have maybe survived the storm. What are the chances he's going to survive being swallowed by a whale? 0. But then he realized that the God that he knew had so much more to offer than beyond his imagination. And then you have the Ninevites. The Ninevites, even worse chance. They weren't the people of God. They were Gentiles. They were wicked. They were rebellious. They were violent. They were hated. And Jonah comes preaching to the Ninevites and he says, he doesn't say, if you repent, you won't be destroyed. He says, in 40 days, you will be destroyed. He doesn't say, maybe, if you do something different, you will be saved. No, he says, you will be destroyed in 40 days. Ninevites say, you know what? We're going to try to overcome God. They fasted, they prayed, they begged for his mercy. The animals fasted, the children fasted, and they all came before God, and they received an unhoped for deliverance. You see, they got to understand God in a way that their minds couldn't conceive. You see, many of us, we become apathetic and we feel like we can't fulfill God's calling for my life or be used in his kingdom. Why? Because I believe that God has limitations. I've put limitations for God. When will I ask God for not a guarantee, because I have to know the character of God, but I want to ask him for opportunities. When Peter was walking on water, the disciples were in the boat, okay? When they saw the ghost walking on water, they were not hoping that God would pass them by, but they were hoping that God would not bypass them. They were hoping that maybe God would not ignore them. But the person that got out of the boat and put their foot in the water like St. Peter did was able, in a very amazing way, to say, I got to experience something with my God and with his power and who he's called me to be when I asked him for an opportunity. You see, what the disciples didn't understand is they weren't aware of the other price. So there was a price of getting out of the boat, walking on water and possibly drowning. They didn't realize the cost of not getting out of the boat. They didn't realize the cost of not fulfilling all that God has called for them. Imagine your life, that if you just stay in the boat your whole life, you're going to be one of those 11 disciples that says, man, my brother Peter, put his foot out. He put his foot out and began to walk on water. Why didn't I ask God to command me? Why didn't I ask for a chance to walk on water, to be able to experience God in this new special way? This is the high cost of being a faith potato. Not a couch potato, but a faith potato. The person that says, I can't go any further than where I am today. And so you're happy. I come to church, I get my coffee, I might come a little bit late, I might, mingle a little bit, and then I go home. And when they put a little bit of pressure on me at church, I'll give some money, and then when they don't ask, I'll ignore. And all these things we say, let me just stay within my limits. And the church was not meant to be like that. The church was is supernatural. That God has given you all of himself in the Eucharist. God has given you all of his Spirit throughout the sacraments. But yet we say, you know what? Let me play it safe. This is the story of unrealized potential. It's a story of unrealized potential. The price you pay for being a faith potato is real spiritual growth. In Numbers 13, chapter 31 to 33, it says, "But the men who had gone up with him said," this was when they were in the desert, in the wilderness, for 40 years, Moses had requested that 12 spies go into the land and to spy out the promised land to see if this is something that we could have. So he sends them out, and this is the report. "But the men who had gone up with him said, 'We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we.' And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, 'The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. Then we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we were in their so we were in their sight.'" You see, these spies, God had promised them, "I'm going to give you the promised land. You are going to be more. You're not going to be slaves anymore. You are going to be people that are reigning. You are going to be the royal people of God. Just go and spy out the land." 10 of them came back and saying, "Not going to happen. There's giants over there. They're going to kill us. We're not going." And they convinced Moses, no, we can't do this. 2 people, Caleb and Joshua. They came and say, "We can crush them. We have God on our side. We can go get the mountain." And Caleb claimed his own mountain. He says, "You know that mountain over there? That one's going to be mine." And he was starting to claim his inheritance because he knew that God was giving them an opportunity to inherit something great. My question to you is, which one are you? Are you Joshua and Caleb that say, "God, let me loose. Let me go out there. Let me serve your kingdom. Let me just experience how mighty and how good you are"? Or are you like the 10 that says, "This wilderness isn't so bad, right? We get daily manna. We get water coming out of rocks. Everything's fine. Let's just stay here"? Be honest with yourself. Which one are you? Are you Joshua? Are you Caleb that says, "God, just let me loose. I believe, not in myself, I believe in who you are. And I believe in all that you want to give me from the goodness of your heart"? It's this story of unrealized potential. You see, this is the way that leads to this spiritual stagnation. Maybe you feel like you haven't been growing. You have unfilled longings. This sense that I'm not living life the way I was supposed to live. How many of you feel that today? How many of you feel like I'm just stuck in the rut, right? I go to work, I come home, I make dinner, put the kids to sleep, I pray, go to work, and the same thing over and over again. And this is the purpose of my life. And I love my husband, or I love my wife, or my sister, or my friend, or whatever. That's good enough. Unfulfilled longings. Why? Because you haven't opened the gift. You've thought that it's too risky to open the gift. You see, God wanted to make a wake-up call for the people. And so Jesus told a story in Matthew 25. It's about a CEO who had 3 employees, okay? And each and every one of them was given a very lavish opportunity. Jesus teaches 3 principles about this master that we're going to learn about. And what we have to understand is how we are going to embrace his gift. So again, we're going to talk about the story of unrealized potential. Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. Let's read it. "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take the talent from him, and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus talks about huge sums of money. The master gives his servant, his first servant, 5 talents, the second 2 talents, and the third one 1. What you have to understand about a talent, because Jesus is trying to give a message by this. A talent, the first one, received the neighborhood of 15 years of wages. 15 years of wages. I want you to assume that, let's just say, in this area, the average, I don't know what the average is. Let's say it's $50,000, $60,000, whatever. Multiply it by 15. And somebody gives you this large sum of money, and it's this great opportunity. What would you do with it? I want you to imagine, you see, what you could do with this money that God entrusted with you. God has entrusted something so great to you. What have you done with what God has done? We're going to study that exactly. The first truth about the master is that he is the Lord of the gift. He is the Lord of the gift. You see, these 3 employees until now have just been carrying out orders. All right, boss, tell me what I'm supposed to do today. I go and I do whatever tasks and I go home. And every day they're used to just being told what to do without realizing they could become something much more. You see, their lives were routine, predictable, and they played it safe. No authority, few resources, limited responsibility. Life was comfortable. I want you to think for a second. I want you to listen to the first servant and see what he might say. He'd probably say something like this. I thought my whole life was condemned to be routine. I had dreams but couldn't pursue them, passions but couldn't follow them, talents but couldn't test them. I was never in a position to plan, take risks, or take initiative. My life was comfortable. I wasn't facing starvation, but I longed for something more. I wanted to make a difference, and just when I was ready to give up hope, the master did something I've never heard of anyone else doing. He called me into his office, looked at me from behind his desk with a twinkle in his eyes, and entrusted a large portion of what belongs to him to me. I can't believe that he has that much faith in me. What do you guys think? How much faith do you think that God has in you? A lot of us, we look to leaders. And you say, well, God made it very clear that he chose a certain leader because he's got a lot of faith in that leader, or this gifted, talented person, or whatever it may be. How much talent or how much faith do you think God has in you? Little? A lot? Does he see you as the same way those Israelites saw themselves, as just grasshoppers? Or does he see you as somebody that is capable of managing all these talents? You see, in place of the word talent, I want you to plug in something else. I want you to think about your life, your mind, your abilities, your spiritual gifts, your body, your money, your strength, your will, your church. What is it that God has given you? What I want you to understand, because you might be thinking, oh, I don't have any of those. There are no talent people in the story of Jesus. We don't have anybody of saying, and there was this one guy that just sat there and he didn't get any talents. And so he was waiting in line and Jesus wasn't fair to him. Do we hear that in the story? Which one are you? Maybe many of you are saying, I'm the one talent guy. God gave me one talent. I wonder how many of us are because we're so insecure about ourselves, or we're so insecure about who God is, or even that we're insecure about how God sees me, that automatically, I bet you most of you are thinking, I'm the one talent guy. What are the chances that the whole congregation and that all the people within the church are the one talent guy? There is no talent people. Not only that, God offers himself to be a partner in your life. You see in the writings of St. Paul how he says we are co-workers with God. We are co-heirs with God. He puts our hands in his hands. So when you refuse to use your gift, and you refuse to use your talent, and you refuse to offer yourself and say, Lord, I offer myself completely to you. You know what you're saying is, I don't believe in me, and I don't believe in you. You are just unfair. And that's what I see, to be honest with you, in believers today. I see a lot of people that believe that they are the no-talent people. That they are the people that just come. I'm good at drinking my coffee in my seat quietly. I'm good at listening to sermons. I'm good at standing in the back row at church. Is that it? Is that all we are? Is that all we are? The church that Christ has poured his whole Spirit into? Is that where we're at? You see, we don't know our God. Romans 6:16 says that every single one of us presents ourselves to something. We work for somebody. And St. Paul says it this. He says, do you not know that to whom you present yourselves slaves to obey, you are that one slaves whom you obey? Whether of sin leading to death or of obedience leading to righteousness? Who have you presented yourself to obey? Have you told, like St. Peter, Jesus, command me. If you command me to walk on water, I'm going to walk on water. If you command me to go and to speak to Pharaoh and tell him, set my people free, I'm going to do it. Like he did to Moses. Who was Moses? A shepherd in the wilderness? God said, you are just going to speak and it's going to happen. You are going to be able to do what you never imagined you'd be able to do. Who was St. Peter? A fisherman that was a bad fisherman. Every time Jesus ran into them, they were fixing their nets. They weren't very good. Half the time they couldn't catch anything. Who would think that Peter was the one that by his words, 3,000 people in one day were going to be cut to the heart? Who would say so? You see, whoever you present yourself to obey, you are that person's servant to obey. The only question is, what will you give your life to? And will it be worth it? Will it be worth it to give your life to God? I wonder if you ask Peter today, ask the disciples, after you gave your life to Christ and you left fishing and you started following Jesus and you guys were kind of poor and you guys were kind of sometimes treated poorly, sometimes you were praised, do you think it was worth it or not? What do you think Peter would say? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't change 1 second of the last 3 years of my life. Why? Do you know what I saw? Do you know what I tasted with God? Do you know that I saw Jesus in all his glory on the Mount of Transfiguration? Do you know that I raised a dead person with my prayers? Do you know that I handed out food to 3,000 people with 3 crumbs of bread? I was able to feed 3,000 people with crumbs of bread? How is that? I'd never change, and I would never regret what I've given to the Lord. Second thing is, I need to appreciate what the Lord has given me. The third servant failed to do this. He took the greatest gift he will ever be given and buried it in a field. I want to ask, how many of you have neglected, you've given up because somebody came to correct you or tried to offer you some criticism? And because they offered you criticism, they said, maybe you should do things different. Maybe you should try a new ministry. Maybe you should change this about yourself. And because you were criticized or you felt rejected, you said, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm going to take this and I'm going to bury it. So many people have this negative point of view towards God because they didn't want to listen to criticism. As I look at the circumstances that we're in today here at St. Mark's, I can either look at this as a disaster or an opportunity for God to say, let's try to walk on water. Let's try to do what you never had faith to do before. Let's try to do something. You don't believe in yourself? Okay, don't believe in yourself. Do you believe in me? Do you believe that I'm the high priest of this church? Do you believe that I am the Savior of every soul? Do you believe that I care about the salvation of every person that's in this room or in this church or in this city or in this country? Of course I do. Then I can look and say, you know what? Let's just bury it. Let's just bury everything and just go through the motions. I imagine God is saying, no, I'm calling you to something great. I'm giving you a chance. I'm giving you a chance to say, trust me. Trust me. I am the giver. Trust in me as your giver. Is God a giver or is he a taker from you? How do you look at God? When you look before God, do you see him as a giver? Do you obey him as the one who gives or the one that takes? Is your walk with God that of being stripped of all joys and happiness and all this stuff? Or the more I give to God, he gives to me. The more I give, he gives. And that's my walk with God. Second thing is, the second truth about the master is that he's the Lord of the settled account. You see, this third servant who only got 1 talent, he forgot that the Lord of the gift is coming back. And he's going to say, what did you do with what I gave you? Every morning you wake up and you pray the Agbayah. In the first hour we say, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. Imagine if John the Baptist, sent from God to turn the people of Israel back to God. And he goes and stands before the throne of God and God says, what'd you do? He said, do you know the state of those people that I had to go preach to? I didn't even try. They were terrible. They didn't know anything about God. They hated God. And so John the Baptist said, you know what? It wasn't even worth to waste my time on this earth with those worthless people. So let me stay where I am. Imagine if John the Baptist said that. Every morning, you should be saying, there was a man sent from God whose name was Abuna Paul. There was a woman sent from God whose name was Mary. There was a woman sent from God whose name was, and plug your name in. And I want you to think, God is going to come back. And he's going to settle accounts. He's going to say, I gave you support. I gave you money. I gave you a great church. I gave you a great community. I gave you freedom. You weren't living in Syria or Iraq, hiding in caves, running for your life. You're sitting here in an air-conditioned church, or at least it doesn't feel air-conditioned. It should be air-conditioned, okay? With a cup of coffee, with no fears. I'm going to settle accounts with you. One day I have to settle these accounts. Not because he's coming to judge, because he gave you opportunities and he believed in you. He's saying, come back, tell me about your experiences. Isn't that what Jesus did with his disciples? He sent them out and says, okay, go. Cast out demons. Pray for the sick. Imagine if the disciples said, some of those sicknesses were contagious. I didn't want to touch them. I'm sorry. What? I gave you power. I gave you so much. But I have sin. Did any of these 12 disciples not have sin? Anybody not have mistakes? Matthew the tax collector. Do you think he was like, sure, send me out? I'm sure he thought, I'm the one that's going to have power. I've been cheating my people for years. I was a tax collector. I was a this. I was a that. No. You see, God is a faithful giver. but he will settle accounts soon. So many people blame their refusal to get out of the boat on certain circumstances. First one is the danger of comparing. Don't fall into the danger of comparing. I would imagine one of the reasons the third servant buried his talent was maybe he felt like his portion was inadequate. And so he looked and said, you gave the other guy 5, you gave the other one 2, you only gave me 1. That's not fair. You didn't give me as much, and so I'm not going to do anything. How many of you compare? How many of you come to church and you say, I don't have the gift. I could do that when I look at all the successful priests in the Coptic church, and I still suck it up and stand up here on stage, and I look at all these priests and say, look at how gifted they are. Why am I up here? But I say, you know what? You called me to something. You gave me an opportunity, and I'm going to take it up. I'm going to take up your offer. There's so many people that are comparing, and you're looking and saying, but this person got married. I never got married. This person got a good job. I don't have money to do, I got to work extra jobs. I got to do this. I'm a single mother. That's not fair. Do you think that God is going to come to you and say, you know what, you're right. You're right. I can't believe I didn't give you anything. You got the short end of the stick in every part of your life. What am I thinking asking anything of you? You're right, you were worthless. Do you think Jesus is going to say that? He's going to look at you and say, I didn't really expect you to do anything. You just had enough going on with your own life. Just stay where you are. Never. Never. Never will God look to you and say that. And God will settle accounts because he believes in you. You see, the size of the gift is not the most important thing. Christ deals with the first guy as he did with the second guy. No difference. The Lord of the gift is so wise. He knew exactly what he was doing when he created you. The Lord of the gift is not going to ask you, what did you do with what you didn't have? But he will ask, what did you do with what you had? Comparing is not an adequate excuse for the unopened gift. You see, so many people, they fear. They live by fear. They make people disobedient to the calling of the master. You see, Moses, he was afraid. He said, God, I have a heavy tongue. I can't do it. God says, okay, look. He says, what do I do when the Pharaoh asks me who you come from? He says, tell him this. And then he says, no, I'm not convinced by that answer. Okay, what do I do if they say, you're not good enough? He says, I'm going to give you a trick. Take your staff, throw it on the floor, it's going to turn into a snake. He says, okay, give me something else. He says, okay, fine. Put your hand into your cloak, it's going to be leprous. You're going to put it back, and it's going to be clean. Magic tricks. And he said, I don't know if that's going to work. You see, Moses had 1,000,000 excuses. And then God just said, Moses, actually, as he's making excuses, you see God speak with an exclamation mark. He says, Moses, exclamation mark. Moses, stop making excuses. Just go out there. Fine, take Aaron with you. And he took Aaron. And we know that Aaron messed up later on. Excuses. The servant is judged not for doing bad things, but the servant who only had 1 talent, what was he judged for? Was he because he sinned? Is that why he was judged in the story? It was because he did nothing. The servant was judged not because he did bad things, but the employee was judged because he did nothing. What are you doing? What are you doing for God? What are you offering in your life for God? God has entrusted something. He's the Lord of the settled account. He says, for I knew that you were a hard man, reaping where you do not sow, and I was afraid, so I hid what you gave me. The servant is judged not for doing bad things, but for doing nothing. The church fathers talk about this concept of sloth or laziness. And it's the failure to do what needs to be done when it needs doing. Alexander Schmemann, who is an Orthodox theologian, said, sloth is the suicide for the soul because when man is possessed by it, he is absolutely unable to see the light and to desire it. The more you sit back and say, I can't do it, or I don't want to do it, or it's going to be too much. He says, man is possessed by it. He will never see the light and desire it. I wonder how many of us have become numb where we don't even care about the light of God. I need money. I need a raise. I need a spouse. I needed this. I needed that. But I don't care about the light of God. How many of us are living like that? Today is God's call, and He's saying that He is the Lord of the settled account. Last thing, I want you to know that He is the Lord of the reward. He is the Lord of the reward. He has wonderful things in store for those who steward His treasure wisely. He says, you have been trustworthy in few things, I will put many things in your charge. You see, part of the reward of heaven is that we will finally see the full potential of humanity. You are going to grow in your potential in God. When you were created in the image of God and the likeness of God. The likeness, St. Irenaeus of Lyons says, it's like a seed with potential. And the seed is to grow every day. And the more the seed grows, you will reach your full potential. Imagine if God created you as a seed and wanted you to grow into your potential, and you go back, stand before the throne as a seed. What benefit is a seed? What benefit is a seed? God is asking you to be trustworthy so that He could reward you. You see, God is not going to do it so He could punish you. God is not saying, okay, I gave you this, this, and this. Now I have to punish you in this, 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 and this. God is looking for excuses to reward you. People who get sicknesses, cancer, whatever it may be, you know that God is looking and saying, I want to find an excuse to crown you. And so in the last several months of your life, I gave you cancer. And the way that you fought through that cancer, and the way that you endured, and the way that you clung to God, I just want to crown you. God has given you so much, not because He wants to hold you accountable and judge you, but because He wants to reward you. I want you to take a moment and just ask yourself these questions. What is my deepest dream? How much passion do I experience in my daily life? How often do I take risks that require a power greater than my own? Many of us, we are not taking risks because we only trust in my power, which means you have no faith. Who would ever say, I have no faith? How many of you guys would admit that you have no faith? Anybody here say, I've got zero faith? Nobody would take pride in saying, I have no faith. But God is making it very clear that you are living within the means of your own power. You are not living a life that says that I'm in a shared life with God. I'm in union with God. And so what I do, God does with me. And so I can expect that God would realize, that I would realize potentials or experiences with God that I never thought I could do on my own. Imagine, I want you to think about where God is calling you. Take each moment and say, God, this moment is yours. This career is yours. This relationship is yours. My children, they are yours. My life, it is yours. My gifts, they are yours. My time, it is all yours. And imagine what you would be able to say like Peter that says, Lord, just command me to go and I'm going to go. And he puts his foot outside of the boat and is what? Walking on water. Peter, you're walking on water. The only person in the history of man that was able to walk on water. Even Moses had to part the water, but Peter got to walk over the water. That's amazing because he took the opportunity. I pray today, as we start to embark on this journey of Lent, which we're going to start next week, that you would realize this is not a time to beat yourself up in Lent. This is a time to enter into a shared union with God. I'm in this union with God, and everything that I do, I just want to experience His sweetness. And so I'm removing the distractions of food and whatever, and all the things that like weigh me down, and I'm going to say, God, I'm going to open up a gift. If it's talking to others, if it's encouraging, if it's listening to people, if it's visiting, if it's preaching, if it's defending those who have no one to defend, whatever it might be, if that's your gift, I want you to use this season. And if you have a heart for the poor, God bless the people that are organizing the Feeding the Homeless thing on March 7th. Somebody's got a heart and they're saying, I'm going to get as many people as I can to go and we're going to love the poor. God bless you. That's God's given you a talent and you're going to turn it into 100 talents, not 1 talent or 5 talents. This is the time where you empty yourself. Empty yourself is not just this like imaginary thing. Empty yourself means empty yourself in love, in loving others, in fulfilling the commands of God and saying, Lord, just command me. Who do you want me to love today? I wonder if my love can overcome somebody's stubbornness. I wonder if my love can heal a person that's rejected God. I wonder how far my talents can go for the kingdom of God. God made it clear that your talents will double. The 5 became 10. The 2 became 4. But the guy that buried it, who did nothing, had to settle accounts with God and had nothing to answer for. May God give us this desire to get out of our sloth and our apathy and say, God, I'm done with that. I'm going to begin to change my habits and work on honoring you with my life. And glory be to God forever.